name is Birgit Koopsen. That doesn't matter. My name is Birgit Koopsen. I'm a brand ambassador for Gelli Arts and I am in the Netherlands. And I'm going to show you today how to create beautiful flower prints using both acrylic paint and PanPastels, and I'm going to show you how you can paint on the plate to create beautiful prints. I'm going to use today real flowers and artificial flowers and show you the difference. And I'm going to show you some tips and tricks that makes it possible for everybody to make flower prints. So let's turn the camera. There we go. So first, let me show you the type of prints that we are going to make today. So these are the type of prints that I am going to show you how you can create these. As you can see, all flowers in different colors. And I'm going to work on multiple plates at the same time because there is some drying time in between the layers involved. And so I'm just going to start on this first plate and then I put it aside to dry. And I prepared 2 plates before the lesson started so I can do the next step straight away on the plate that is already dry. So first, let me show you the flowers that I'm going to use. So first of all, these are artificial flowers. You can buy flowers like this in like basically every dollar store. They are like really expensive and you can use them many times. So I bought 2 of these and I've only used this one for all of the flower prints I made so far. So as you can see, I can use it many times. This one too has been used quite a couple of times. So that's the good part of this. But I feel like somehow you do see a little bit of a difference when you print with real flowers. There is more detail. There are more like finer details in real flowers than that you get in like artificial flowers. But of course, in general, I consider it a waste to use these beautiful flowers while they're still so good to do printing. But what I do is when I have a bouquet of flowers and most of it is not good anymore. I have no idea how to say that in English, but that you would throw them away, then usually there are 1 or 2 flowers in there that are still pretty okay, and then you can use those flowers for your flower prints, of course. The downside of printing with real flowers is that they tend to pick up less paint than artificial flowers. So you can use them like 1 or 2 times in one print, and then you have to take a new flower to continue your print because they just don't pick up enough paint anymore because the paint is not like soaking in to the flower. It's like on top of it and you can't pick up new paint with wet paint. And when you have like artificial flowers like this, it dries real quick. The paint dries real quick and you can use the same flower over and over again on the same print. So that's basically the difference. Today I'm going to print on white card from the Recollections collection of Michael's, which is a little bit heavier than copier paper. But when I do my prints that I think like I would like to frame them, then I'm using like a 300 grams. I don't know exactly what that is in pounds, but 300 grams Bristol paper, like really heavy paper, so I can just frame it as it is. So let's start. I like to start with a darker green. Sometimes I add a little bit of black or like a Payne's gray, which is not like real black, but has a little bit of a blue, bit of a blue tone in it, for the first layer. And I'm working on a smaller plate right now, the 5x7 plate, which means it doesn't take too much time to create the print, the first print. But what I like to do when I work on a bigger plate, and I want some more working time because I don't want the paint to dry before I have stamped all of the flowers. I add a little bit of slow dry medium. And the one that I'm having here is Liquitex, and I really like it because it's so fluid and easy to mix with the paint. So what I usually do is add like a little drop of the slow dry medium, and my lid is broken, so I'm going to use this little tool to add a little bit of that slow dry medium. Just a bit is enough, and it will keep your paint wet a little bit longer and gives you more working time. And I just put the paint and the slow dry medium on the plate at the same time, and then I mix it while I'm rolling out the paint. I prefer doing that because if I mix it in a cup, then usually I have too much paint and I have to throw away paint, and I don't like throwing away good paint. So that's why I just mix it on the plate and then roll it out. And then I have a bit more time to work. And what is really important is that your layer is not too thick, because if you have too much paint on the plate, the flowers will not pick up enough of the paint, and you won't get a nice open area where you can actually see the flowers. So a thin layer, you should almost see the paper through your paint. So now I'm going to start with this flower, and I'm just going to use it as a stamp, putting it in the wet paint and trying not to move it, but pressing it down in the middle. And then with my fingers, I try to put down all of the petals as far as I can without touching the paint with my finger. So I'm trying to go all the way to the outside, but I don't want to touch the paint that's around the flower, because then you will see a fingerprint in the final print, which is not really nice. And then I'm going to lift it up, and there I have my first flower impression. And then I try to dab off some of that wet paint from my flower, because I want to do another print with this one. And as I said, this is not like really not absorbing the paint, so it makes it a little bit harder to get a really nice second impression with the same flower. So what I will do is, when I'm done with this flower, I will actually put it in a little cup with water, because then it will still be good enough for me to use tomorrow. And then the paint is dry, then I can use it another time. So then here I have another nice flower. I noticed that when you do flower prints, that when you have flowers with do you call it a heart, like the center of the flower and where the petals are around the center, they give the best impressions. So like daisy type flowers, with petals going all around, that you can like flatten out on your plate. And this way I'm just going to fill my entire plate with flower impressions. And normally, if I would not have added the slow dry medium, then probably my paint would already be drying. But now it's still nice and wet, and I can easily pick it up. Okay. There we go, almost there. I also have some really small, tiny flowers. Like this, and then one more up here. Okay. So this is the base of my print. And now it needs to dry completely before I can add any PanPastel or more acrylic paint. So I'm going to put this aside and come back to this one later. And first I'm going to take one of the plates that I prepared before. So this one was made with the artificial flowers, with the big one and the smaller one. And this one was made with real flowers, like the same kind of flowers that I just used in my sample. So let's just start with this one. And then the first print that I'm going to make is going to be with acrylic paint. And so I have some brushes. Let me see. So like a round brush and one like this. These two are the ones that I like the most to use on the gel plate. And I'm just going to put some paint on my little palette here. Let's see. Some pink and some soft, very pastel kind of yellow. Maybe add some brighter pink too. Let me see if I have a brighter one here. A little bit brighter. Or a magenta. I could do a magenta. Okay. Okay. And then I'm going to color in my flowers, and I don't use any water. So I use the paint as it is straight onto the plate. And first I'm going to color the little centers of the flowers, at least of the smaller flowers. I use different flowers here, so I'm not going to use the same color everywhere. So, and when you do this on the plate, when you work with this technique, you have to keep in mind that what goes on your plate first will be on top of your print. So you don't have to be too careful about the painting, because the green of my first layer will be on top of this color. So you don't have to be too precise with painting. It's okay when you go a little bit outside of the lines. Okay, I'm going to use a little bit of the magenta for the center of this bigger flower. And then blend it from the middle to the edges. And create a different color in the center than I'm going to use for the petals. So as you can see, this is a very different kind of technique to use on the gel plate. It's not as fast and straightforward as when you do just like background printing or something like that. So you have to be more patient and take your time to do something like this, but the fun part is that you can just walk away and come back later, because in the end, everything needs to be dry before you can pull the print anyway. So if you don't have time to finish it, you can just leave it and then come back when you're ready to continue. And leave it to dry again, because paint on the plate can never be too dry and also can never be on the plate too long. You will always be able to pull the paint from the plate, no matter how long it's been on there. I'm sorry. Sorry for. So I'm, of course, doing it a little bit quicker than I would when I would do this for myself. Because I don't want you to watch me paint all evening. I actually want to finish something. uh, I'm going to the next one.
Forget, get
I
you
was.
if you need to.
I'm fine, I think now. I was just telling Dominic that I don't have any pollen allergies or anything, but I'm starting to question that right now. Okay, so here I'm going to use a lighter color for the smaller flowers. And then when I have painted everything, I will leave it to dry completely. And then use a layer of white paint to pick it up. Sorry, I'm just going to have to mute myself for a moment.
And just so you guys know, that we have several other Gelli Art classes that are on our YouTube channel. So definitely please visit our YouTube channel for those, and I will post in the chat any of the upcoming classes. You better, Brigitte?
Yes, I'm better.
All right.
Thank you. So, as you can see, it really doesn't, I mean, it does look like flowers, but not in a pretty way. So it's looks a little bit like a children's drawing or something. But as I said, the green will be on top of the color when I pull the print. So that's okay.
Birgit, we had a question. Do you mix the extender with the paints that you're hand brushing? And about how long does it take for each layer to dry?
No, I don't use the slow dry medium on the paint that I put on the plate, because it has to dry anyway, so it doesn't matter if it dries fast. I only use it for the first layer. And how long that needs to dry depends for a big part on the circumstances in your room. So I can't say anything about drying time of paint, because it depends on how warm it is in your room. It depends on how humid it is in your room. So that's even if you have exactly the same paint, the drying time will be different for me here in the Netherlands than for you in the US. Or maybe you have a heater on, or you have an air conditioner on, or something like that. So you really have to find out for yourself how much time it takes for your paint to dry. But you have to make sure that the paint is like really dry, because if I would now put my pickup layer on top of what I've painted here, then the wet paint that's around here would just mix with my new layer of paint, and my brayer would just pick up paint that's already on the plate and move it around, and you would totally lose the impressions of the flowers. So it's better just leave it on there for a couple of minutes, and then feel if it's dry to the touch, and then you can add that extra layer. But I can tell this one is not nearly dry, so I'm going to put this one aside again, and then continue working on the one that I just prepared, or I just did during the class. So this one should be dry by now, even though I used the slow dry medium. It looks as if this is dry. So what I can do now is, instead of paint, or I should say maybe in combination with paint, I can also work with PanPastel to color my flowers. So for instance, let me see, just put that aside. I have some PanPastel here, and I just have random colors. So you can buy like these trays. You can buy them, you can buy sets, but you can also buy the trays empty, and then you can buy your own favorite colors and put them in the tray, which makes it very easy to work with them, because it's kind of like a paint palette that you can just put besides your work, and then take from it as if you would be painting. So I have these like makeup kind of sponge tools, soft tools that I use for using PanPastel in smaller areas. So I'm just going to add a little bit of the PanPastel to my sponge, and then I can apply it to my plate, and the PanPastel will stick to the plate. You have to make sure that you use only a little bit of PanPastel, just enough to cover your plate, because if you use too much PanPastel and it's like loose powder on top of your plate, what is not sticking to the plate, then it will mix with the layer of paint that you're going to apply to pick up the print from the plate. So you can mix colors on the plate, or even outside of the plate on the PanPastel itself. And you can be quite precise using the PanPastel with the smaller tool. So, and I see that also this print shows a little bit more detail than the one that I just painted. So it's easier to see where the smaller petals, for instance, and the bigger petals start. So I can be a little bit more precise here. And you might not expect it, but these PanPastels are quite opaque. So the color you put on first is the color that you will actually see in your print. So if you put on a darker or a very bright color and you're like, oh, I want to how do you say it, tone down a little bit, that's not really possible, because once the color sticks to the plate, it's there, and it's not like you can then still mix it with another color to really change the color. So you have to be aware of that before you apply like really dark or really bright colors, if you don't want the colors to be that way.
Birgit, can you use mica powders? And we also had a question, have you ever tried using eyeshadows?
Yes, I have definitely used eyeshadows, and so I would say I have not tried mica powders, but I would say why not? Because eyeshadows work too, and they also, a lot of eyeshadow has a little bit of that glimmer, and that can make like really nice prints with the glimmer in it. So you can definitely do that if you don't have any pastels and you want to try the technique, and you have some eyeshadow. And even if you go to like a dollar store or something and get some eyeshadow there to try if this is a technique that you would like before buying like the expensive PanPastels, then you can definitely do that. It's just that they are a little less, they have less pigments. So the colors will not be as bright as the PanPastel colors are. That's something that you have to keep in mind. But yeah, you can definitely get really nice results with eyeshadow. I've tried it, used it many times. So now I can, if I want to, I can color my entire flowers with the PanPastel. I can also decide to use acrylic paint to color the rest of the flowers, because you can just go over the PanPastel with acrylic paint without damaging the PanPastel that's already on the plate. It will not move the PanPastel around. It will also not really change the color of the PanPastel. So that is something that you definitely can combine if you want to. And I might do some color on the petals, but not like completely covering the petals. So I can also use my pickup layer to add another color in the petals. I might actually do that. Make some with a lighter pink, and then you will also still see a little bit of the white of the pickup layer in some of these open areas. It might be nice. Are there any questions right now? I can answer while I'm just finishing this little painting here. No questions.
We did have a question. Do you think you could do it and make it into a greeting card? We had Sandy who said it would look nice as a greeting card.
Of course, you can turn it into whatever you want, because I'm now using the 5x7 plate, and but you can use even a smaller plate, or you could, when you make the print, you can cut it in half and then just mount it on like a folded card, and make it the front of a nice greeting card or birthday card or something. Basically, once you've printed it, you can use it for whatever you want. So you can decide to take pens or markers or pencils or whatever and work even more on the print, or you can use them as they are to frame them as a piece of art. But you can also use them in your art journal, like for a background, or as you said, like a greeting card. You can do whatever you want with them, and it might depend on the paper that you where you print on. So the paper that I'm using now, like the Recollections card, is actually really nice for card making. But if you would like papers like this as collage material, for instance, you could also decide to print on tissue paper, or on like really light random copier paper, or regular copier papers, I should say, like lightweight copier paper. Then you can use it more as a collage material. So yeah, you can do whatever you want with these prints, and I agree. I think they would make very nice cards. Okay, I'm not going to put more color in here. I think it's okay for me if there's also still some white visible when I pull the print. So as I used PanPastel here, which doesn't have to dry, I can pull the print straight away. I'm just going to put a paper towel on the plate and push it down. If there's any loose PanPastel powder, it will pick it up from the plate, and it won't roll out in my paint. So I'm going to make sure that my paper is ready. This paper. I don't know what, I think I spilled some ink somewhere there. There's a clean one. So for the pickup layer, I can use white, but I could also do gold or silver or something like that. What should I do? Should I do gold? Let's just try gold. I have no idea how it will turn out, but I like taking a little bit of a risk. So I'm just going to roll out this layer of gold acrylic paint, which is Amsterdam, by the way, also available from Michael's. And then I'm going to place my paper on top. And I'm going to leave my paper on there until everything is dry. So I noticed I get a lot of questions about paper tearing when people lift up their or pull their prints. So there are two ways. You can either lift up the paper like straight away after rubbing to pull a print, or you can leave the paper on until everything is completely dry. You cannot pull the paper somewhere in the middle, because if the paper is still a bit wet and the paint on the plate is already dry, you can imagine that the paper is like soft, and when you try to pull it from the plate with the dry paint, then the paper will rip. So if you know exactly how much paint you need for a pickup layer, then you could like pull the print right away. But when you have multiple layers of paint on your plate, it's quite hard for one layer to pull up all the dried paint from the plate. So I prefer to leave my paper on the plate until everything is dry. So I make sure that the paint and the paper is completely dry before I pull the print. That takes a couple of minutes. So that's also why I like to work on multiple plates on the same time, because then I can put one aside and I can continue working on the next one. So that has to dry before I pull up the paper. And this seems dry. So that means that I can also put a layer of paint on top of this one to pull the print. And here I'm also going to do something that I haven't done before, and I have no idea how it will work out, but it might be nice. So I'm going to use a turquoise green as my pickup layer. And what will happen is that if there are any open areas still between the flowers where there's no green from the original print and no paint from the coloring, the pickup layer will be visible. So I think this might make a nice contrast with the colors on the plate, and I'm just going to try. I mean, if the prints are not the most pretty ones that you've ever seen, that's not the most important part. The most important part is that you understand the technique. And because I might use colors that you don't like anyway. So, and the ones that I really like might not be your favorites and the other way around. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. There we go. And then, of course, like I just said, when you have multiple layers of paint on your plate, especially with the one that I painted with the brush, you can imagine that there's quite a thick layer of paint on the plate, and it's dried paint. So if I would pull up my paper now, even though I know exactly how thick my layer needs to be, there will be paint staying behind on the plate, and I just don't want to risk that. So I'd rather put it aside until everything is completely dry and move on to the one I have here. So the first one I painted with a brush to decide where the colors would be. The second one I used PanPastel, and this one I'm going to do different. So I'm not going to go into the separate flowers, but I'm just going to add color on top and just randomly mix those colors, and wherever they go, they go. So you get a different type of a different feel to the print. I'm just going to use some pink and some white, and again a little bit of that turquoise green. I'm just going to spread it in different areas of the plate. And then this one also gets a sheet of paper. There's some black ink splatters on there, but that's okay. So the one that I just did should look a little bit like, let me see if I have one here where I did that. Yeah, so this one is where I just randomly added the colors and not like painted in the specific flowers. And as you can see, this one is in the same colors, but here I decided exactly where the colors had to go, and it has totally different feel. It's totally different type of print. And then I have one. Let me see where it is. Yeah, here. So here I decided to use purple for my first layer instead of green, because yeah, we tend to use green for the first layer because we're making nature prints, flower prints, but why not use just random colors to create flowers? So that's also something that you can try. Now, let's see. And I'm a little bit hesitant to already pull up the paper, but I've used all three of my plates now, so I can't start another one. Are there any questions right now that I can answer? So I can just wait a little bit longer before I pull these
Here,
prints.
you have a question. When painting in the flowers, do the petals need to be painted until completely opaque and have no transparency showing through?
It doesn't have to be, because if they have open areas, then the color of your pickup layer will show. And if you're okay with that, then you can just use white. But as I did with my last print, the one before, I used the turquoise green. just in case there are open areas and I want that different color to show. What I do like to do is like use, instead of a white, use like a titanium buff, because that's just a little bit more beige kind of color than like really white, because like the real titanium white is like real white, and I don't always like that in my prints. So if you have like an off-white or a titanium white, titanium buff, then that might be nicer for in case your colors are not completely opaque. But of course, if you don't want to pick up layer to show, then you can use opaque paint and make sure that you cover everything. Or what you also can do is, instead of using acrylic paint to pull your print, you can also use a matte medium, like for instance, Liquitex matte medium. And then you can pull the print. It does exactly the same as an acrylic paint does, because basically this is acrylic paint without the pigments, and it will not change the color of your what's on your plate. So if you would like to print, for instance, on paper that already has color on it, and you want that paper to show in your open areas, then you can use a matte medium, and it is transparent, so you will see whatever is on the paper that you pull the print on. Okay, I'm just going to try. I'm just going to pull up now. This is the print with the PanPastel. And you can see PanPastel is staying behind on the plate. That will always happen. No matter how little PanPastel you use, you will always have the pigment staying on the plate. So here we have the print with the golden paint, which I actually quite like. It gives a really nice, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but I can see that it gives a really nice shine. So that's the first one. And as I said, the pigments of the PanPastel will always stay behind on the plate. Now I will show you that you will not be able to clean off the PanPastel with a baby wipe or with water and soap. If you use PanPastel and you want to clean your plate, you need a little bit of oil. It can be baby oil, but it can also be vegetable oil, whatever oil you have on hand. And then you will be able to completely clean your plate and get off all of the PanPastel, as you can see. So you just keep adding a few drops of oil until your plate is completely clean, and then you use a clean damp cloth or a baby wipe to clean off the oil from the plate, and you will be ready to go again. There we go. Next one. I think this was the second one that I put paint on. Well, it looks as if I can pull it up, so let's do it. Oh, this is the one where I put the turquoise blue on top, and that turned out totally different than I expected. A little bit dark to my liking, but yeah, you can see the little areas where you can see the actual color, the turquoise green, but you can also see that the color kind of changed the pink that I used to color my big flower, the magenta pink combination, because obviously that was not an opaque color. and that's why the turquoise green changed it. So yeah, definitely not my favorite color combination. Also because it gets so, when it gets so dark, you lose detail. So when you have like a greenish background and you use lighter colors, you will have way more detail showing than when you use darker colors. I think that's what you can really see the difference between these two, that there's way more detail in this one. And I think you can also tell, like this one, for instance, also way more detail. Okay, and then here's the final one. I don't remember what I used. I think I used just, oh, this is the one with the random colors. So this is where I did not paint in several flowers, but just use random colors. Now, this for me would be a really nice background for an art journal, or as collage material if it would be on thinner paper. Okay, I still have a little bit of time, and I think it would be fun to show you one more thing. And I'm going to roll out some paint again. And a little bit darker. Adding some black. Maybe a little bit too much black, but I think this is pretty okay. Okay, so now I'm going to put this flower in the middle on my plate, and I'm going to take a piece of tissue paper that I'm going to wrinkle. And then I'm going to place that on top of the flower, pushing the flower down, going all around to make sure that the petals touch the plate. And then I'm going to push down the wrinkled tissue paper into the paint to create a nice texture around my flower. There we go. And then I lift up my flower, and now I have, with one flower, I have, oh, I don't know what happened, but I'm not sure if you are still here, because one of my screens just vanished, but I think we're still here. So now I have this like one big flower in the middle with this organic texture all around it. And of course there are many things that you can use to create texture, but I think the wrinkled effect of the tissue paper is really nice. And of course I don't have time for this to dry and show you the final print, but here is a print I made using this exact same technique. And so I used a lighter green around the edges of my print for the pickup layer, and that's why I got the yellow and the lighter green tones in there. So on this print I decided to try and use my white roller pen which I personally wish I hadn't done, but that's a matter of taste, I think. So yeah, you can always continue working on top of these flower prints. So I hope you enjoyed this class and you got inspired to try some new techniques. My other screen
Yeah, it
is
went
gone.
over again. That's okay. We hear you just fine. And
Yeah,
your
so
prints are gorgeous.
thank you so much. So we can't put the camera on my face anymore because I don't have the other camera, but I hope you enjoyed the class and I hope you will try. And if you do, please share your prints on social media and tag us, Gelli Arts and Michael's stores, and we would love to see your prints and see what you create. And I hope to see you again next month. And for now, I hope you enjoy the nice weather. See you again soon. Bye.